Hey, how's it going, everybody? Scott Spreitzer here with Raphael Esparza, Griffin Murphy. We are DocSports.com's In the Paint, talking college basketball from now through March Madness. And of course, there's a lot to cover over the next several months. We're going to take it from week to week, and we're going to talk a little bit about upcoming games for the weekend, marquee matchups, things of that nature. Some thoughts from behind the counter with the man who spent many of his years behind the counter and still does, although the counter now refers to probably his kitchen counter because you can do all that good stuff from home. But we're going to talk about weekend games coming up this week. Raphael's going to give us some lines, some thoughts from an odds maker's perspective, and then we'll kind of break those down a little bit and give you our thoughts on them. So a lot to come up. And of course, at the end of the show, money plays, which are best bets from each one of us that we'll fire out for the upcoming couple of days of college basketball. But again, we'll be here each and every Tuesday evening. And of course, these shows will be up and available on the Docs YouTube page, so you can watch them anytime throughout the week. Wanted to mention before we get started that if you've yet to become a member at DocSports.com and just want to give it a trial run, it's real simple. You click on the link below the video, you get yourself set up for a free $60 account, and then you can use those free $60 on any of our daily packages over at DocSports.com. It's basically a great way to give Doc Sports a trial run if you have not yet do so. Let's talk a little bit about what we learned over this first weekend of basketball, guys. I know I was tuned in, and boy, I'm watching North Carolina because I happened to catch about 2/3 of their game against Elon as I'm surfing the web and looking for places to watch games. And I saw Elon giving this team a lot of rough times when North Carolina had the basketball because they were throwing zone at them, like nonstop zone guys. And what we saw out of that is North Carolina doesn't have great deep perimeter shooting, at least as of yet. And Elon led that game with about 6.5, 7 minutes to go. Guys, I saw the same thing in the first half against Kansas. I know Kansas is extremely talented on an individual basis, but they love to play man. Although I saw hints of a 1-3-1 and 2-3 from Kansas, and North Carolina was struggling badly. And then Raphael, what they did basically is Kansas kind of got a little bit lackadaisical on defense in the second half. Carolina started driving the paint. It was a different story.
Yeah, I'm not going to put too much stock into that Elon game. The Kansas game was the one I'm going to put my stock in just because Kansas blew a 20-point lead in that game. They were up big. But let's just face it, North Carolina can't shoot the three ball. It's not about the zone. Yeah, when you play zone, you need to hit the three ball. They've only hit 23 pointers in 2 games. They shoot less than 30% from 3-point land. I don't care if it's 1-3, 2-2, box and 1. The zone is killing them because they can't shoot the outside shot. They're a very big team. Even their bench is a very big team. They're probably going to win games because they're going to out-rebound teams. But if they can't hit the three, it's going to be a very long season. But I'm going to give them some slack. It's only 2 games, and I like how they fought back from that big deficit that Kansas did. But like I said, Eli, some of these games you have to just pass them over, like these Christian Houston Baptist schools that some of these teams are playing. Yeah, watch these games. Oh, my team stinks. You know what? It's weird. It's game 1. Pump the brakes a little bit, and let's wait to see. But the Kansas North Carolina game was where I was more impressed of.
I say my team stinks right through March. So, some of these days, but you're right. And I'm looking at like North Carolina, Griffin. It doesn't really bother me when they go up against the top teams in the country like Kansas, because they're going to be jacked. They're going to be ready to go. But I was looking at a game coming up later this week, checking my notes here. Friday, they play American. American's not horrible. They're not good. They're not horrible. They're kind of an in-betweener. They're like an Elon. You're not pumped up to play American University if you're North Carolina. They might have a little more motivation off of a loss, but that's the kind of team that could throw a zone at North Carolina and hang a big number. Your thoughts on what you saw with the Heels this past weekend?
I mean, yeah, absolutely, Scott. I have to say, Elon, they hit 45% from the perimeter, nearly beating UNC on rebounds, and they put up 22 points in the paint. Traveling to Kansas for your second game of the season, that's where the strength of schedule comes into heavy impact by far. Kansas, they beat the hell out of Howard at home, and then they dealt with North Carolina. But those were both back-to-back home games, which is a massive benefit in their equation. So this game for me was simple, Scott. Kansas outscored UNC 16-2 when it came to points on turnovers and 50-32 when it came to points in the paint. What did we learn here? UNC, they have to come together with their newer starters. 3 of their 5 guys are new starters. So there's clearly a miss factor here when it comes to chemistry heading into Kansas game 2. So it couldn't have been a tougher spot for UNC. This is by no means a bet-off team for me right now, but we're going to get a lot more information out of this team in the next upcoming weeks. The issue for this team right now, in my eyes, Scott, is not the boards or the points in the paint. It's the issue of knowing where your shooters are and to determine your look-ahead game plan. And that's where UNC failed against Kansas in that matchup. This was a full-blown chemistry played matchup, and we'll know a lot more, Scott, about UNC once we get into early December when they start playing teams like Bama, Georgia Tech, and so on.
Yeah, there's another team I was watching, and Raphael likes to make fun of me because I said let's talk a little bit about Creighton right before the show, right? And of course, I grew up in Omaha. I'm a hilltopper, as they call them back there, and the Blue Jays were my team. And you'll see in a little bit when we go back to a smaller screen, there's a Blue Jay hat that somehow is appearing behind me. But I wanted to mention real quickly that this team struggles every single season in December for whatever reason. And this is a team that was a point away from making the Final Four a couple years ago. A couple of buckets away from making the Elite Eight last year, but they're 6-8 in their last 14 December games straight up. And I'm worried about this team this year, guys. And Griffin, I'll toss it to you because they got the big man in the middle. Feels like he's been there for 15 years. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the big 7-footer. He's 29 for 32 shooting through a couple of weak opponents. The rest of the team shooting 40%. Gone is Baylor Shireman. Gone is Trey Alexander. They both got drafted into the NBA. Other guys are going to have to pick it up because check out the schedule coming up for the Creighton BlueJays in December. They've got San Diego State, Texas A&M, potentially Oregon in a tournament, Kansas, Alabama, all coming up in the next few weeks. Guys, I'm hoping Creighton just blows everybody out until then so I get some value here. Griffin, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Scott. I mean, Creighton, they returned just 3 starters this season. And I want to open up with, in my eyes, both of their 2 first matchups against Texas Rio Grande Valley and Fairleigh Dickinson. Those are nothing more special than tune-up games. Creighton, they shot 30% from the perimeter in both of these matchups. They dominated the boards in these games, but yet they failed to cover the spread in both of these 2 matchups. My biggest take here is we need to keep our eyes out on turnovers for this team. In the first game, they got beat down on turnovers 19-4 against Texas Rio Grande. I mean, that is absolutely terrible. This was expected, though. In your first game of the season, you haven't officially solidified yourself by any means, especially with 2 new starters in the rotation. Game number 2, massive bounce back game for Creighton. They shifted the dynamic of play. They beat down on FDU 27-19 when it comes to points on turnovers. So the biggest thing for me that I learned right now about Creighton, they're a dominant ball club. Rankings don't matter entirely, but they're still 15th in the nation. We need to scout this team. Look for their mistakes after playing 2 garbage teams and failing to cover the spread twice. Really not playing dominant basketball whatsoever. So we have to scout. Now they have Houston Christian, UMKC, and then Nebraska. I want to see this team formulate together with 2 new starters in that rotation before I start placing wagers on them. My biggest role into this one, Raphael, will be how they play Nebraska coming in. I believe that matchup is December 2nd. When I get 3 more solidified games and I see how this team plays, that's where I can start to see, hey, do they have their stuff together? Are they playing legitimate, disciplined basketball right now? Or are they still kind of a cluster? But right now, Raphael, this is a bet-off team for me until they play Nebraska.
Well, some of these games you have to look at their bet off. Look at the betting numbers. Wednesday's game, they're minus 30 against was a Houston Christian on that one. So you can't put too much stock because they're going to go deep into their bench on these games. They went deep in the bench on both games. Keep an eye out for Steve Benson. There's the senior guard. He's going to be the key this season, not the big guy in the middle. He's shooting 90% from the field so far. He's in 2 games. It's going to be Benson, and the guards are going to be the reason why. But it's so hard to bet these games right now to start because some of these teams are going to play the whole bench. I saw that I think the Creighton only did not play 1 guy in their last game, and they didn't cover. Well, of course they didn't cover. The starters didn't play in the second half. Being minus 30, I can guarantee you the big guy's probably going to be eating at the end of the bench with the 10 minutes left to go, then playing in this game. So, yes, maybe take a shot to plus 30. They're probably going to be 30 or 32 against UMKC, like you said in their second game. Nebraska, I agree with you. Nebraska's they're starting to turn things around in both sports. And it's not 1990 anymore in Nebraska. They're finally having some good sports teams in football and college basketball. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that matchup is on that one. Expect a low-scoring game because Nebraska will want a low-score second half. They'll probably zone them and probably cut the big guy off. So probably low-scoring game. That total probably like 142, 143 against Nebraska.
They come on, man. 1990. I mean, they were top 10 with the Polish rifle, Eric Piatkowski, before Griffin was born. Come on, Raphael.
I'm just talking to all the sports of Nebraska. They haven't been relevant in all sports besides volleyball.
I was just going to say, damn it, don't you know we're a volleyball school?
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, guys, midweek matchup. Folks, what we're going to do with these each and every week is we're going to be talking about a big clash on a Wednesday or a Thursday in college basketball. Generally speaking, you know, a couple of the top 25 teams going at it. We don't have that this week, but we do have two top 50 power-rated teams in LSU and Kansas State from Manhattan. And the thing about this game is I think, guys, this is going to be one of those games that if either one or both of these teams is on the bubble come March, where they're starting to put out the big dance invitations, they're going to look back at a game like this. Did you win? Did you lose? Depending on how the opposition did throughout the rest of the season. So I think it's a very intriguing matchup. Raphael, I would think Kansas State's going to be about a 2-bucket favorite or thereabouts, laying about 4 here at home to LSU.
Yeah, probably get about 6 because don't forget LSU's hit the reset button in basketball and the men's side, not the women's side, because the women's side can probably beat the men's side now these days when it comes to Baton Rouge because it's only football and women's sports there that goes out at Baton Rouge. But yeah, they're probably close to a double just be. Kansas State has played probably the tougher schedule right now. I'm not saying they play top-notch teams, but they play some teams that have a lot of experience, that have experienced guys coming back. But K-State has some nice JUCO transfers coming in, their bench play. You're going to see a high-scoring K-State team, which we don't normally see in Big 12 basketball when it comes to K-State. We always see Kansas scoring a lot of points. This Wildcat team can probably put up a nice 80 to close to 90 points all season long.
Griffin, I know Jerome Tang, head coach of K-State, 2 years ago, he comes into the program off of Bruce Weber's final season. And Bruce Weber did a good job recruiting. We do know that.
Yes.
I was never a big Weber fan over the final half of his career, but he does know how to recruit. So Jerome Tang comes in, takes over head coaching spot in Manhattan, and they end up, they went deep into the tournament, Elite Eight. Now, last year, his second season, when he's got more control of everything going on in the offseason, they fail to make the dance. I think they get back this year. Griffin, your thoughts on this game?
I agree with you, Scott. This team is only taking strides forward. I mean, looking back last year, 14-19 on the season, looking at conference play, 2-16. Back in 2022-2023 season, they were an awful 0-9 on the road. Last season, they went 3-7 on the road. So you can look at some gains, some stride forward. Road games for LSU have been a massive issue for years now. Matt Mick is a very good head coach, and this LSU squad is ascending to the upside, I have to say. But meanwhile, on the other side, Kansas State, they opened up the season beating down New Orleans, and then they beat an underrated Cleveland State club in a 77-64 final. Kansas State has already seen a tougher talent pool of schedule in 2 games this season. This will be their 3rd consecutive home game, and dating back to last season, Kansas State had a season record of 19-15, but their complete dominance, Scott, came into play in Manhattan. 19 wins on the season, 15 of those wins happened at home. So now you have to add up. They are 17-3 in their last 20 games at home. Dating back to last season when it comes to against the spread, K-State, they were 6-4 against the spread with rest advantage, 10-9 against the spread after the win, and 12-8 against the spread with 2 to 3 days off. I really like K-State here, Scott, especially with home court dominance and LSU not being able to really do anything on the road for several years now.
I'm with you, by the way. I like Kansas State in this game, 4 or less especially, and I think it'll be, around 4. So that ought to be where the line turns out. Want to go behind the counter here because I like to dig into what the sportsbook guys are thinking. And, that means we got Raphael, who spent a great deal of his adult life both on the Vegas Strip and, of course, making lines for other casinos now that he's living off the Strip and away from Southern Nevada. And so what better person to ask about a couple of games each and every week, big marquee matchups. The first one, Raphael, goes this Friday. It's Alabama at Purdue. We've got the up-tempo and Crimson Tide going up against a very deliberate Boilermaker squad. Of course, no more Zach Edey. What do you make this number right now? And you don't even have to be concerned about bean counters. anymore when you're talking to me and Griffin. This isn't the Vegas Strip anymore.
No, I mean, this one's very interesting because Joe Public is probably thinking Zach Edey's still playing right now. Purdue's always a big bet team. Alabama, people think Alabama only plays football. So you have to make Purdue probably a pick 'em, maybe a small favorite, even though the talent-wise is all on Alabama. Yes, Purdue still has size. Yes, Purdue will probably out-rebound Alabama, but the talent and the speed, which I think the speed of the game is going to bother Purdue. So, but you're going to get kickback from Purdue all the way. You can't make Alabama the favorite right now because you just get flooded of Purdue money being at home and people thinking Zach Edey's still playing there. So you can't really make that as the issue on that. So you probably have to make it close. Would not shock me if Purdue opens up small favorite, and then maybe Alabama gets fed up to maybe the small favorite at the end of the game. But keep an eye out for these games. These are early games. Some sports books don't have big limits on them just because, this is a Friday game. There's football on Friday. I saw this. I was working. I can't mention the book I was working with last Friday because I was doing political. I myself missed 3 college basketball game moves because I was too busy looking at presidential and college football. Same thing. It happens every sportsbook. Sportsbook on Fridays and Saturdays, Sundays, the best time to bet college basketball because the odds makers are looking at football stuff. They could care less right now about college basketball, about NHL, about NBA. I missed 3 games. I missed 3. I can say that right now. Got yelled at. And I'm not even work for the company. I was just a consultant, and I got yelled at. I was thinking I was going to get written up or something. But keep an eye out for moves that should happen that don't happen. So that's when you need a little focus, especially on Friday and Saturday college basketball games.
It's tough, Griffin, because, I'm a night owl. My prime time for working on games, especially basketball season, I start about 10:30 at night Pacific time when the West Coast games are ending, and I work until I'm done. So a lot of times it's 3 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, whatever. I'm pumping out videos. People are like, what the hell are you doing up pumping out a video at, 3 o'clock in the morning or on the East Coast just waking up? But I've got a couple of guys in my circle who are also night owls. It's just the way we've always been, jumping out in front of those lines. They're moving them like crazy. And it's to Raphael's point of low limits are moving lines right now. I mean, they're moving lines like crazy on games we like. It's like if we don't pull that trigger, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, we're missing out. As Raphael said, he missed a couple games last week with line moves because of this. I mean, it's crazy. Now, just so happens, for full disclosure, by the way, real quickly, that I'm on a game where it moved the other direction on Tuesday as we're cutting this video, which happens about 15 to 20% of the time. We've been around this long enough now where we know where the line's going to go about 80% of the time. But anyway, having said that, your thoughts on Alabama, Purdue, and then I got a game I want to focus, and it's going to be Georgetown, Notre Dame, Raphael. So get your behind the counter mind on that while Griffin talks about Alabama and Purdue.
Yeah, you know what, Scott, absolutely. And Raphael, I love your outlook on this thing. And I really do hope that this line does come out as Alabama being the favorite in this matchup, because what I sniff out is a trap bet. Currently, right now, Purdue, they're 3-0 as a club. This will be their 4th consecutive home game. And I expect a very underrated Braden Smith. This kid is a baller. He thrives under pressure. He's extremely decisive with the ball and is not afraid to drive it down the line. This is a kid, even if he's not playing, this kid can thrive and get the job done. Mm-hmm. I expect a very tight game in this matchup, but give the rock to Braden Smith and let him go. I like Purdue here at home, especially 4th consecutive home game. This will be Bama's first road game of the season. And on top of that, dating back to last season, I don't know if anybody remembers, Alabama started off the season very slow. They were playing about 500 basketball, I want to say 10, 15 games into the season before they finally started to erupt. And that eruption actually came against LSU, where they finally blew them out and turned around their entire season. So for me in this game, I hope this line opens up in Alabama's favor, and that way sniffing out that trap bet, because I believe Purdue comes in here, cleans them up at home, making it 4-0, as Alabama is typically off to a slow start to the season, as they did last year dating back, Scott.
Yeah, I tell you what, I want to talk about this Georgetown Notre Dame game real quick, because I think it's an interesting game. I mean, Georgetown, they pulled the coup of the decade in college basketball coaching when they were able to get Ed Cooley to come over from – I love Ed Cooley. He comes over from Providence. He did a great job at PC. And, of course, Georgetown had some nice years under John Thompson III. They hire Patrick Ewing because of his name and what he did with the Knicks as a player, and it was not good. it was great for those of us who like betting Big East Conference play. We just go against Georgetown as much as possible and usually cash tickets. But now it's Ed Cooley in his second year. Raphael, I don't know, are they flying? I know you're going to make a line here, but to the public itself, do you kind of get the gut feeling that Georgetown is going to be under the radar in games like this in the early portion of the season?
Yeah, just because Notre Dame usually starts off slow as well, because they're very rusty coming off the beginning of the season. They can't hit the three ball because normally they have four white guys out there that can't hit a three ball in the beginning of the season. And it just drives me crazy when you're betting Notre Dame. But I think Georgetown could be a sleeper all season long. They're going to play great defense, and I think they're going to be able to control the boards. And I think that's what Georgetown is. Always have a great center, and you control the board. They're normally not the best three-point shooting team, and I don't think they're going to be a very good three-point shooting team, but they're going to control the inside of the game. I think if they can do that, they'll probably be there. Notre Dame will be the small favorite just because of the history of what we've seen with Georgetown as of late. They haven't won a game in 1980 to be something irrelevant since Georgetown, but Notre Dame will be a small favorite on here. I'm looking at the total. If it's in the mid-40s, like 145, 146, keep an eye out for the under, because like I said, both teams will be struggling to shoot the ball. We can see an under game right here.
What are your thoughts on this one, Griffin?
Raphael, you know what? I'm going to be on the other side with you on this one, brother. Georgetown, they ended their season last year on a 5-game losing streak. They went 9-23 as a team and 7-12 at home, ending the season, obviously, on that 5-game losing streak. Notre Dame, on the other hand, they're returning 5 guards who all saw significant minutes last season, most noticeably sophomore Marcus Burton. This kid was supposed to go to the NBA. He elected to stay at Notre Dame for one more season. So basically now what we're looking at is a team that is full of chemistry with 5 guys that have all played together, and then a Georgetown team who currently really isn't solidified when it comes to their starting rotation. So right now, looking at me for this game, Georgetown lost 4 of their 5 starters from last season. Now they have to deal with the Notre Dame team who's bringing back basically their entire team. I think this is going to be a huge shockwave for Georgetown. Notre Dame comes into this game undefeated, full of chemistry. Georgetown comes into this game with a freshly set of new heads on the court with no chemistry whatsoever. I really like Notre Dame in this one, despite their slow start to the season in prior years. I like them here in this matchup. I think it's a good setup.
Chalk of the week, guys. We don't have a shocker of the week this week, but Chalk of the week goes on Wednesday. Troy and Arkansas doing battle from Fayetteville, Arkansas. We did get a line on this. We're cutting this video at 6 o'clock Eastern time, just to let everybody know, on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I did see around 4 p.m. Eastern time some 13s in favor of Arkansas at some of the lower limit books. And, of course, that might change a little bit as we get into the evening and, of course, overnight. But Arkansas laying about 13. And Griffin, John Calipari takes his act to Fayetteville. Only one starter from that Eric Musselman finale, that final team that he had with the Razorbacks. And he did bring a lot of Kentucky players with him to this new gig. And this is one of those games where you got to throw out like everything you knew from last year when it comes to this basketball team, Arkansas, for the most part, because this is going to be a different looking team, different players. It's Calipari's team right from the get-go.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, you said it all. I mean, Arkansas, immediately, it is going to be a completely fresh set of team, and what the public's eye is going to be sitting on is that ranked 18th in the nation right now, so that's a public trap. Going into this right now, Troy is a covering machine, and I absolutely love them sitting in this spot. They opened up the season 2-0, beating Toledo and New Orleans. On the season, 2-0 against the spread. Dating back to last season, Troy was 9-1 against the spread with 2 to 3 days off, 7-2-1 against the spread when playing non-conference games, and Raphael 18-9-1 against the spread during regular season play. Troy, they're a covering machine. Arkansas is going to be the play for the public considering their ranking, but diving deep into this matchup, Troy, they're the play in my eyes here, brother.
I don't think Arkansas is going to be the play. I mean, this one opened up at some shots at 12.5, only moved a half a point, and it's been up for almost 3 hours right now. So if it was a public play, it would have moved right now. I can't believe Arkansas shot 7 free throws in their last game. 7. I shot more free throws in this garbage basket when I was doing the NFL handicapping today than they shot free throws in that game. Give me a break. Arkansas should just have blue jerseys underneath their red jerseys. I am fading them all season. I am not sold on Arkansas this season at all. What did Calipari do at Kentucky besides eat chicken? Nothing. What's going to change at Arkansas? I don't see a big change on this one. I think the number is correct. I don't think we're going to see that much line movement. I think they'll bet the total because Troy can speed up the game, and they love hitting a 3-ball too. So keep an eye out for a total on this game.
It was damn good chicken from what I heard. So, get off his back a little bit. But, it's we don't letting everybody know. We talk about what games we're going to talk about, but we don't know what each other is going to be on before the show begins. So it's a mystery to us who the other guy is going to be on going in. But I think we're all three going to be on the same side here. You got to throw out those stats from Arkansas last year, as I mentioned, because of the coaching change, a bunch of different players. But what you can do is look at what these players did for Calipari at Kentucky, who are now playing for the Arkansas Razorbacks. They turned the ball over a lot. I mean, they were also, by the way, bad in opponent points allowed per possession. That's one of the problems, or two of the problems, that the Wildcats had last season. Guess what Troy does? They force a buttload of turnovers. They've won 20 games in each of the last 3 seasons. I think, like Raphael said, I don't think there's going to be big public action. I mean, we'll see, late night, overnight into the game that comes out in Arkansas. But I do believe that there's some value here on Troy getting double digits, considering all the changes at Kentucky that they've got to get used to down there. Money plays, guys, which is our best bets from each of us. Before we do that, a real quick reminder about the $60 free account. If you're not yet a member at DocSports.com, you just click on that link below the video, get yourself set up for a free $60 account. You can then use those free $60 on any of our daily packages over at DocSports.com. And don't forget, this Thursday, as I like to call it on my own personal videos, guys, it is Football Thursday, because it is the day of the week when we release all of our plays throughout the entire weekend, Thursday through Monday, college and pro football. And so check those out on Thursday afternoon over at Doc Sports, where we are all exclusive. Let's get to the money plays. We'll kick it off with Griffin Murphy and then Raphael Esparza.
I'm going to open it up, Scott, here with Temple at Boston College. Temple rolling into the season 2-0 right now and absolutely rolling. They just cleaned up a very underrated Sacred Hearts team. I know they're not top tier by any means, but Sacred Hearts is always sustaining. They're always there. Then followed that game with a massive blowout. They put up 103 points against Monmouth on Friday. This will be Temple's first road game after dealing with Drexel tonight. Dating back to last season, Temple, they were 7-3 against the spread on the road, 7-2 against the spread with rest advantage, and 14-8 against the spread as an underdog. Boston College, they just got blown out on Friday against VCU in an 80-55 final. And I've got to say this right now, brutal. Boston College, they hit 18% from the perimeter. They beat VCU 18-9 on second point chances and nearly split with them across every single other metric in the game. How do you get blown out by 25 points when you dominated the paint and stuck them across the boards across every metric? They're showcasing right now bad basketball to start the season. And Temple, they're coming into this game flying. And especially at home with the expectations of them beating Drexel tonight, this team should be 3-0 heading into this game. And Boston College has not played a game since Friday. So this game will be tipping off on Friday. So that's 7 games of no matchups, which in my eyes is a con, not a pro. Give me Temple in this game as they're off to a hot start and they are against the spread covering machine, Scott.
Raphael, your money play.
I'm going late. Take a nap and watch this. I love me some Long Beach State, San Francisco. Give me the over, 152. San Francisco is coming off a big win against Boise State. No, not a Houston Christian team, not a Baptist school that we've been talking about. An actual Mountain West team that was actually really good last year that was able to hit the 3-ball. They were ice cold on this one, and the game still went over the total. It's just the Dons averaging 84 points a game in their 2 games. They love to run and speed up this game, except when they play St. Mary's. But that's another story. We'll talk about that matchup later. But I just love the way San Francisco plays. They're going to be a high-scoring team. They're going to be a big matchup for Gonzaga and St. Mary's all season long. It's not just a 2-conference team under. Don't forget about the San Francisco Dons. I like this total at 152. It's already 152.5. We won't be shocked if we see 154 at tip-off.
I lost you there for Raphael. Sorry about that. I lost you there for a second. I had a little shut down on my service here for just a second. So what was, for my sake, I know everybody else heard it. What was your play there again?
Over at 150, over at 152. I would pass on it if it goes there anywhere 154 and a half, 155, because I think it will go past that number.
Gotcha. I'm sure everybody else heard it, but I wanted to make sure I heard it so I can plunk some, a few bucks down on it. I'm going to go with another WCC team. I'm looking towards Wednesday's card, and it's the matchup between North Dakota State, the Bison, taking on Santa Clara. And I like the Santa Clara team. Already won once with them this year in their opener. A big game against St. Louis. Both teams improved this year. They got the job done. But as far as North Dakota State, really bad on the defensive end of the floor, guys. And it's that way for the third straight season. They're already off to a rough start. 358th in the country in defensive adjusted efficiency. There's only, 362 teams. They're 358th. They've yet to face a team inside the top 215, yet they're 358th in defensive adjusted efficiency. I think that comes into play here. And as far as the Broncos, they're solid. They bring in the Indiana State coach last year who had the Sycamores playing at a high level, John Schertz. He brought in a couple of transfers with him. But this team returns 72% of their scoring, 69% of the rebounding. They look very good against St. Louis, and I think they do so again here. Now, you're probably going to have to lay some points. So if you don't mind swallowing some of that lumber, it's going to be a good 14, 15-point spread here with the Broncos. It is a Wednesday night game, and my money play will be on the Santa Clara Broncos. I love me some WCC, by the way, guys. I do a show in Vegas. I'm going to name drop for just a second. Bill Cartwright, the old San Francisco Don who played for the Chicago Bulls. Speaking of Chicago there, Griffin, there you go. And we do some shows out here when he's in town. And I've been a big WCC fan for quite a long time. So there it is, folks. You heard Griffin's, you heard Raphael's, you got mine on Santa Clara, a Wednesday night game. We are in the paint, brought to you by DocSports.com. Check out all the videos each and every day of the week from all the guys over at DocSports.com on the YouTube page. We're going to be here each and every Tuesday throughout the entire college basketball season. As you know, it's a marathon. And starting next Tuesday, what is that? I got to look at my calendar. November 19th, we will be going live with these shows each and every Tuesday, and I can't wait for that. So, hey, listen, thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as I always like to say, you know what to do, folks. Put them in the win column. We'll talk to you next week.